This is the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole regarding bill numbers 150162, 150163, 150164, 150165, 150166, 150167, 150438, and resolution number 150179. Mr. Stitt, please read the titles of the bills and resolutions.
Bill number 150162, an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2016 through 2021 inclusive. Bill number 150163, an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 2016 capital budget. Bill number 150164, an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2016. Bill number 150165, amending section 19-1801 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Tax to further authorize the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia to impose a tax on real estate within the City of Philadelphia, to provide for an increase in the tax and making technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 150166, amending section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to further authorize the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia to impose a tax on the use or occupancy of real estate within the School District of Philadelphia under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 150167, amending chapter 19-1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates under certain terms and conditions. Bill number 150438, amending section 19-1806 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Authorization of Realty Use and Occupancy Tax to further authorize the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia to impose a tax on use or occupancy of real estate within the School District of Philadelphia and to set the rate for such tax and making technical changes, all under certain terms and conditions. Resolution number 150179, providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2016 through 2020 and incorporating proposed changes with respect to fiscal year 2015, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority, the authority pursuant to the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement authorized by an ordinance of this Council approved by the Mayor on January 3rd, 1992, Bill number 1563-A, by and between the city and the authority.
Thank you. Today we continue the public hearing of the Committee of the Whole to consider various bills just read by the clerk that constitute proposed operating and capital spending measures for fiscal year 2016, a capital program, and a forward-looking capital plan for fiscal year 2016 through fiscal year 2021. To ensure that there's an opportunity for all here today to be heard, certain ground rules have been established as follows. Number one, your testimony should be about the budget and proposed spending priorities. Copies are available on the table at the front of the room where you signed in. Two, all speakers must sign up in order to testify. If you have not already signed up, please do so now by signing your name on that same list to the table to my left. Your name will be called in the order in which you signed up. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. In order to be fair, because we have such an extensive list, I intend to hold faithfully to the 3-minute limit. And finally, we have a timer that will be set to 3 minutes. When the timer buzzes, please complete your sentence and allow the next speaker to approach the microphone. I'll now ask Mr. Stitt to read the names of our first speaker.
Jerry Jordan.
It's always a pleasure. President PFT.
Thank you, and good morning, Councilwoman Blackwell and members of City Council.
Good morning.
I am Jerry Jordan, President of the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers. On behalf of Philadelphia's educators, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak on the issue of resources for Philadelphia's school children. Much of what I say today will sound familiar because testifying on the need for more education funding has become an unfortunate tradition over the past several years. Nevertheless, as educators, it is our duty to advocate for the resources our children need to receive the high-quality public education that the Commonwealth is constitutionally obligated to provide. I want to be clear. It is incumbent on the Pennsylvania State Legislature to reinvest in public education and provide funding that is not only adequate but sustainable. On behalf of the members of the PFT, I want to express my appreciation for all City Council has done to find additional resources for schools, and I am in support of your effort to find additional revenue. But for educators, parents, teachers, and certainly students, the annual hand-wringing over whether or not our school children will have the basic resources is unacceptable. An excellent school like George Washington Carver shouldn't have to wonder if it can offer an advanced placement computer science class because there isn't enough money for textbooks. It is outrageous that some of our larger schools are still operating with one counselor and one school secretary. Programs that are standard at other districts, such as SAT preparation classes and extracurricular activities, are considered luxuries here in Philadelphia. School supplies, like paper, pens, and other materials, are still scarce at most schools and are typically provided by teachers and school staff who spend thousands of dollars out of their own pockets to adequately stock their classrooms. Yes, additional resources are critically needed by our schools, but I would also ask this body insist on any additional resources are used to restore programs and services to our children, like nurses, music, art, and library science, not invested in efforts to privatize the jobs of public school employees. We need to place an emphasis on providing more counselors, secretaries, safety personnel, and support to classroom teachers, and end the climate of disrespect and demoralization of educators that has been created by the current district administration and the School Reform Commission. Our fiscal crisis is dire, but for the past 3 years, the SRC has been using the budget deficit as an excuse to disrespect and demoralize Philadelphia's educators and shirk their responsibilities to provide programs and services for our children. In April, the school district put out an RFP for outside companies to bid on services provided by per diem substitutes. Now the district is trying to privatize the jobs of Philadelphia certified school nurses. Certified school nurses provide critical and essential functions for our students. In many instances, a school nurse is the only healthcare professional available to our school children. As pediatricians specialize in the healthcare of children, certified school nurses are specialists in dealing with children and adolescents in a school setting. They are trained to understand education and the intellectual development of children and adolescents. School nurses are certified by the Pennsylvania Department of Health and Education and are specifically trained and certified to work in school environments. Unlike contracted healthcare professionals, certified school nurses must have a bachelor's degree at a minimum and a nursing degree. Most have master's degree and beyond. The job of a certified school nurse is not a function that can be simply contracted out to private healthcare providers. But rather than restoring more than 100 nurses to our schools, the district is seeking Band-Aid solutions that put the health care of our children at risk. Let's be clear, This has been the district's plan all along. One of the reasons we have been unsuccessful in reaching a new PFT contract is because the district insists on removing all contract language dealing with school nurses. The PFT will not enter into a contract that gives the district the right to take more services away from our children. Educator morale is at an all-time low. Philadelphia's teachers and school staff have witnessed the erosion of programs and services for children. They have continued to work without a raise for almost 4 years as they pay for school supplies, and they have suffered as the district has laid off personnel or attempted to outsource their jobs. The dissatisfaction with the status quo is not limited to PFT members. Education was the top issue on voters' minds in last week's primary election. Philadelphia citizens overwhelmingly voted on for a mayoral candidate who believes in working with Philadelphia's educators and resoundingly called for local control of public schools. We certainly want to see an increase in education funding and a fair funding formula that ensures every school gets the resources it needs. But along with the funding, we need to see real change in the way those who teach, nurture, protect, support, feed, and care for Philadelphia's children are treated. We can no longer allow financial difficulties to be an excuse for the mistreatment of educators. Thank you again for allowing me to speak to you today and for all you have done and continue to do for our children and our schools.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jordan, for your leadership over the years. We've
Thank
been
you.
working hard to get Drexel and Penn to agree to a program to try to supplement and complement our school nursing agenda in schools. But as you know, they can only supplement a nurse. They can't replace them. And so with all that we're trying to do, we still feel stuck because you've got to have a nurse in the first place. And all that you've said about nurses is so very important. And we raised the issue yesterday. How do you make sure children who need their meds during the day, and my issue on Ritalin and behavior-altering drugs, and now there's a lot of talk about autism and other diseases and other conditions. So it's very, very important that we deal with this, and we certainly agree with you. Certain issues, we accept the fact that we've been short on money, but certain positions should not be up for grabs, should not be, a principal shouldn't have to choose between a math teacher and a nurse. Between an English teacher and a counselor. Certain positions, we should be able to have libraries in schools in place and staffed with books. So we've got a long way to go, but we appreciate your commitment over the years and look forward to expanding this conversation so that and also let me thank the PFT for their position on the local school board. We've got to do something to do our part to create a change. So I want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman, for those words, and we agree that there is a need for more nurses, and certainly the Federation is open to conversations about partnering with our university partners to supplement services for our children. I find it remarkable when we think about the system as it was prior to the state taking over the school district. We had nurses, we had art teachers, we had music teachers, we had librarians. However, since the state has taken over, there has been a tremendous reduction in those services to our children. Something's wrong. Something is very, very wrong when the choices that have been to reduce the services, particularly for many of the neediest children. This is a city that has a very high percentage of families living in poverty. I think the 1st Congressional District is the poorest congressional district in the nation, and yet the reduction of services for children and families in that congressional district, as well as throughout the city, is woefully lacking.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable, and all this change happened to ensure we'd have funding, and it's kind of worse. But we're hopeful with our new governor that life will be better. So we'll know soon enough, and hopefully things will be better, and we don't have to deal with these cutbacks across the board, and in fact may have something and some funds restored. Questions from members of the... Any questions from my colleagues? Okay, Mr. Jordan, we're in good shape. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good, George.
George Richeza.
It's a pleasure to see you, and look forward to seeing you during our budget hearings. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilwoman Blackwell, members of council, parents, clergy, residents, and taxpayers of our great city. My name is George Richeza. I'm the president and district leader of Local 32BJ, District 1201. I represent bus attendants, bus drivers, building engineers, maintenance mechanics, and cleaners in our schools. As I listened to the district give testimony, all I seemed to hear was budget deficit and we need more money, but no plan on how those resources are going to be used. We believe this council cares about educating children and will find a way to help fund the deficit like you have in the past. If given the needed resources, will our children get the education necessary to graduate, or will there be more layoffs of teachers, librarians, school police, counselors, nurses, and food service workers, or will there be more mismanagement of funds causing more hardship of working families already struggling to get by? The COO mentioned building engineers yesterday. What she did not say is they are licensed by the City of Philadelphia and qualified to run the heating and cooling boilers in our schools. The responsibility immense, the reward minimal for providing a clean, safe, healthy environment for the most important aspect of what we do, allow our children to learn. When there are emergencies in any of the buildings, the engineers identify the problem, and then our trades mechanics provide the services needed day or night. Air conditioning, heating, roof leaks, plumbing, asbestos, mold, lead paint. Our bus attendants and bus drivers start as early as 5 a.m. to start the buses for the important process of transporting our children to and from school safely each day. This includes thousands of our special needs students. Our bus mechanics have the responsibility of fixing our buses, cars, and trucks. They work with state troopers to ensure parents that their children are on safe, inspected buses. Privatization is a commonly used term. 3 years ago, we had 600+ bus drivers and over 30 mechanics. Today, we have less than 350 drivers and 23 mechanics. The district has elected to privatize hundreds of bus routes and send work to vendors to fix buses in lieu of hiring qualified employees. 32BJ members in 2012 showed the district and residents of Philadelphia that we care about our children by agreeing to concessions totaling over $100 million. What we did not know was that the district would downsize BJ employees and not hire for 3 years, reducing the workforce by 700 employees. With no salary increase for 6 years and a salary contribution back to the district every pay, it has become difficult to support our families. Senior management has not given back one dime, but continue to hire. The residents of Philadelphia on a ballot question on May 19th overwhelmingly said yes to dissolve the SRC and give it back to local control. A fair funding formula is needed, and Governor Wolf is committed to fund public education, not only in Philadelphia, but throughout the Commonwealth. 32BJ members applaud your commitment to our children by finding the necessary resources to help fund our schools. With the leadership of Council President Clark and all of you in City Council, working with the governor and our elected leaders in Harrisburg, we believe you will find the funding to allow our children to get the education they deserve and make the Philadelphia schools a model that when we, the employees, you, City Council, the governor, and our electeds work together, we can make Philadelphia a model for educating children in difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richeza. And yes, we introduced that legislation, and council overwhelmingly voted for it here, and we're glad it was overwhelmingly supported on Election Day. Are there any questions? Councilman Jones?
Thank you. In our constant trying to move the needle in the right direction for you, public education, and your members, it came across my ears that this is your last year.
Yes, sir.
Can we, Madam Chair, make it a part of any deal that we do that he cannot be allowed to go? Is that
I
something we can
agree.
do?
I'm in total agreement.
Thank you for that vote of
I
confidence.
just want you to know that in the worst of times, when we were trying to make $1 out of 50 cents, when we were trying to make a way for public education funding, that you, your membership, made sacrifices. I remember that, to move the needle in the right direction so we could keep schools open and keep buses rolling and keep operations going, and I'll never forget that. So
Thank you,
thank you
Ron.
for your service.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We wholeheartedly agree. Would you wait a moment, please, because we have other comments. Councilman Nielsen? Can't get away
Thank
too
you, Madam
quickly.
Chair. Nice try, George, getting away from things, you know. Thanks, George, for testifying here today. We appreciate it. Couple questions.
Sure.
George, yesterday, the school district testified, as you know, and they identified their debt services being $4 billion. That's B with a billion, okay? They told us that that debt service that we carry was for the improvement of the schools. Now, your experience and the people that you represent are closest to the conditions of our schools. Can you tell us, for the record, what the conditions of the schools are? Because I walked through schools, I visited many schools, as you know, and what we see is a pretty picture painted sometimes, and it's not what's there. We get pushed down main corridors that look nice. However, we know the nooks and crannies and this infrastructure inside's crumbling down. We've had some of your boilers at Northeast High, I believe it was about 1.5 years ago, where the stack fell down, crumbled. Thank goodness school wasn't in. Then they fixed it, and they didn't even fix it correctly. They had to come back and fix it again. They're paying for things 2-3 times. George, can you give council members and the public an idea on how the school's shape is, the buildings? You lost 700, I think you said 700 employees?
Yes.
All right, that can't be good.
No, it's not.
All right, so they're the ones, we're sending kids into unsafe environments, and I think we need to get that identified here on the record and tell us what your needs are, because you have needs as well. And I know Mr. Jordan identified his needs, and we know them, but these needs go far beyond that, and I think we need to identify that for the record.
Well, let me start off by saying is I've been with the district over 40 years. When I first started in the maintenance department as a welder, we had over 750 employees in the maintenance department. Today, we're under 300 in 16 different crafts, which means that the burden of fixing the schools, keeping up with them, becomes increasingly difficult every day. School district has taken an initiative that they would rather privatize and send work out than have our mechanics, who are more than qualified to do the work in every aspect, and I'm talking about steam fitters, carpenters, electricians. We have the ability to do the work. Unfortunately, everything that we always hear is they got to put out an RFP to contract out the work, which is not necessary. Much cheaper for us to do the work. in regards to the conditions of the schools have deteriorated in the last 15 to 20 years simply because the resources are not being put into the schools like they used to years ago. And what I mean by that is the staff has been cut from when I started at 4,700 employees down to a little over 2,000 employees today. Cannot do the same amount of work in the buildings with the same amount of buildings that we still occupy, over 200 buildings today, with that amount of employees. We talk to the school district. We try to encourage them to sit down, have meetings with us so we can find resolutions to how we can fix the schools. And I don't want to get into every aspect of what the problems are in the school, but they're significant, and they range from outside of the buildings, actually deteriorating outside, cement falling down from the buildings, to mold, asbestos inside the buildings, carpentry problems. It's just a whole host of work that needs to be done. We've been telling the school district they need to hire. And when you have an in-house workforce, much of that work can be done in-house at a much cheaper rate than try to contract it out, because we find when they contract it out, the work isn't the same. As you mentioned, shoddy work being done by some contractors, not all. I'm not going to stand here and say every contractor the school district employs does bad work. But the problem is our workforce is deteriorating. We're getting older at this point, and we're trying to find programs, which we've had in the past with a trades trainee program that I started in, to bring young mechanics into the fold, teach them the trades. Students in this city are not all going to go to college. So finding a program for them once they graduate to come to the school district, get educated in the trades here, which we've done in the past. It has stopped over the last 5 or 6 years again. It's a mechanism to keep the schools growing, to keep the schools maintained, and doing it at a cheaper cost than contracting it out.
And again, as Councilman Jones said, we know, you're calling it your final days. You will be missed, Georgia. We've worked together for a long time.
Yes, indeed.
Prior to me joining council and everything, it's always been a great relationship, and I wish you well in the future, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to echo those sentiments about George. And I don't know how much detail of this you know, George, but if you could elaborate a little bit. So one of the areas that we identified a couple years ago was the transportation. The school district brought in a consultant who quit. Can you tell us from your perspective what the status of that whole transportation reorganization is?
Well, the entire experienced management has left the school district in the last 3 to 5 years. So right now, what we have in the transportation division is someone who came from outside who has no experience in transportation. Money man. He knows the money, but the aspect of the job he doesn't. So the reason that there's so much privatization going on right now, and we've lost about 200 routes that we've had in the past over the last couple of years. We used to have almost 500 bus routes that we serviced. We're down to somewhere around 300 and change right now. But again, it goes back to senior management and hiring a group of people who really don't delve into the problems that we experience every day on our buses, how the buses get out on the street at 5:30 in the morning. Our bus attendants are on the street at 5:30. They get on the bus. They have to service the bus before they leave. They have to pick up the children getting to and from. So the consultant came in, and it's always about with a consultant, as you know, money. They can do it cheaper. We've proven to the school district with numbers that we do it cheaper than a contractor does. And I have the information if you would like to ever see and share it with you. An average route that the school district pays for a part-time route, 4 hours a day, is approximately $285 a day. When we hire bus drivers here, they come in making about $15 an hour, so it costs the school district $60 a day until they are entitled to benefits. And at that point, that increases to about $212 a day total as they get increments. But again, the school district is not willing to really sit down, have a dialogue and a conversation with us, and we've told them the best people to talk to are the people that do the work. Bring the drivers in. I tried to form committees. I've talked to the school district about getting our electeds on our E-board who are transportation drivers to sit down and have conversations. We have a conversation, but it goes no further than a conversation. So again, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it did, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that point that even when you have a workforce, as been the case for SEIU, who's come to the table, who's made concessions, the reform doesn't happen because you're not part of the process. And I think that I agree with you. Ultimately, you know where you can save the money and ensure public safety and cleanliness, which is what we want, particularly for the children. So I want to thank you for that, because I think that whatever happens with the school district budget, clearly the accountability piece has to be in there. And we can't allow for bus attendants and some of those adults in the building who are incredibly valuable to the climate and the culture of the building not to be part of how we get out of this. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Can I just make one comment? When I came last year and I spoke here, Councilwoman Blondo Reynolds Brown, I had made a comment that we don't have a seat at the table. And she actually said, not only should you have a seat, you should have a voice. Well, that was a year ago. We still do not have a seat, and we still do not have a voice at the table, and that's all we want. Our employees are dedicated employees. They want to do the best they can for the school district and the children. But the problem is when you're so understaffed as we are in buildings, and the day-to-day grind, every day, people get sick. There's no one to fill that void at all. And that's why we're asking the school district, they're starting to hire very small amounts, and we're telling them that they need a program to get enough staff in the building so the principals, the students, the teachers, everyone in that building can feel good that they can go to a clean, safe, healthy environment every day. And that's all we ask for.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilman O.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman. I was grabbed by the collar to ask you about bus maintenance.
Yes? Well, right now, our bus fleet is probably one of the oldest in the state. We always pride ourselves here that we had the best bus fleet in the state of Pennsylvania, and we did. 7, 8 years ago, we were the model. We had a director that was a director of transportation that was nationally known and made sure that our buses were serviced, taken care of. The fleet was through budgetary, money to get new buses. And what's happened is our buses now are 12, 15 years old, which means that they need more service than they've done in the past. We used to have around 35 or 36 what we call bus mechanics, fleet mechanics. We're down to about 23 today, and actively working, we probably have about 18. What the school district is doing is instead of keeping in-house services and having our mechanics do the work, they've elected to contract out a lot of that work. Again, like I said, we do it cheaper, and we've proven we do it cheaper. But just the mindset of the district right now is let's privatize it, let's push it out. And what's happening, honestly, is they're dismantling our union. They're taking us apart piece by piece. They're not hiring in a division. Things are going awry. We try to have that seat at the table and just cannot get it. But our fleet mechanics do an excellent job maintaining the oldest fleet probably now in the state, including our contractors. And from what I'm being told, they're going to hire, but that's a capital expenditure, and they're trying to get that approved right now. So that's...
Well, thank you for that, and I certainly want to thank all the staff and the teachers and everyone involved who deal with the kids every day, all the difficulties, and it's challenging in many ways, but I think it's been historically proven that the most important thing about education are the people, and the people in the classroom and the people who support. And I think that would have to be the priority if we're going to turn around the school district. And I think there are certainly a lot of issues around people not being paid appropriately. And I'm not sure how we're going to turn this around if we don't start paying people appropriately and ensuring that that is the mechanism for better education. So I appreciate your work and all your members and everyone else that is involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. One of the other issues, your members are in the physical buildings in the schools. And we had before us a consideration on a capital expenditure for a new prison. That budget comes very differently from the school budget, and I am aware of that. But I couldn't help but notice that Many of our schools are approaching 100 years old. Some of them have had AARP cards twice over. And I was wondering, did the amount of maintenance required to keep them at least habitable, at some point do you see us needing to move for a capital expenditure for new schools as opposed to that new prison?
Well, again, I have a storied history with the school district, and the councilman may remember there was a Perks Reuter report about 15 years ago that identified over $1 billion in capital work that needed to be done. School district borrowed the money through the capital. I think they borrowed almost $1 billion about 10 or 12 years ago to start that improving of the schools. At that point, that money was exhausted, and that's when the schools started to deteriorate. You are right. We have buildings that are over 100 years old. As far as maintaining them on a day-to-day basis, I think what we do well, and we do maintain, but boilers get old, the infrastructure of the building itself needs to be improved, and the only way they're going to do that is with money through the capital budget.
So we've asked them to do a new analysis. After they merged the schools in a slightly controversial manner, we asked them, all right, so let's look at the physical plan of what we have available and take a look at where we can improve, so that people could be in healthy environments, both your members, but also the teachers as well as the students. And so we have asked them to embark upon that again so that we can start to plan because there are areas in Philadelphia that are growing in population and some are shrinking in population, but we need to know where our infrastructure is and where our good bones are and where areas that we could invest and expand and create different opportunities, such as labs at Overbrook High School, where I am a proud alumnus. We go through that with some other schools out here, but we could use some new laboratories. The whole 5th floor is blocked off, and it is a strategic school for the catchment area it serves, and we need to either start to make investments to create a new school or to give a facelift to the schools that we have, but that needs to be strategically done now so that in 5-10 years we can make those moves.
Well, I think a plan should be put in place, and I think even thinking about taking down Overbrook High School would be a crime.
No.
All right, I mean, that shouldn't even be an option at this point.
That's not
Beautiful school, but the fact remains is, yes, does it need work? Yes, but I think the plan, money-wise, is going to be instrumental. But the point is, the school district is fragmented in the way they do their work. It's like a piece here, a piece there, a piece there. We need to take an initiative to get into Overbrook High School and make the necessary repairs that are going to stay there for 15 or 20 years, rather than do a piecemeal and just fix a boiler or fix a floor. We need work done in schools. But the only way that we're going to get this achieved is we got to do it piece by piece by piece. One school at a time. I heard the comment about charter schools and going into our public schools that have closed. That's a great idea. I think charter schools should not have facilities outside the school district, that they should be able to take a school that we have right now, let's get in, do the work that it needs to be done, okay? But the point is, every time we create a charter school, we're not in it, as you know. It's not a unionized workforce, which there's problems with that. All we're saying is give us the opportunity to go in those schools, keep the unionized workforce, whether it's teachers, maintenance workers, whatever it may be, but utilize the buildings that we now have that are unoccupied to instead of trying to knock them down or build condos or something, let's do it for the children of Philadelphia. There's many, many programs in this city that we could undertake in these schools after our programs. And I think that's a mechanism to keep these schools growing in each area like you just mentioned right now. I see the plan in place, Philadelphia Community Sustainability. I think they're great ideas, but I think those communities where we're closing schools is a detriment to the areas. And I'm from the Point Breeze area. They closed 3 schools in the Point Breeze area alone. And that's a shame that we're closing good, viable schools in those areas when they could be used for other programs.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. We certainly agree. Councilman Nielsen?
See, George, one last thing. I'm looking at my thing. I keep hearing our schools, our infrastructure, and I want to put that on the record that the state took over these schools. They weren't in this bad a shape when they took them, and they've really run the system into the ground. And that's unfortunate, and that's something that we're still trying to deal with. And Election Day did put a mandate on that. But George, during your testimony, you identified that your union saved the school district $100 million. Okay, not $5 million, $100 million. And that was on the back of your workforce, I'm sure. That was up in your contributions to the pension and stuff like that. Can you identify some of the ways that you came up with that $100 million? Because the public thinks that, you know, the entire district and the employees are draining it. And we think it's management. And we're going to keep banging heads like that because your workforce are my neighbors, and you know that. And they're the ones that coach in the boys' clubs and keeping those. I mean, I got to say, the guy up the street from me, he mows the lawn, and that's not his job. He comes in on Saturday and does it on his own time because if not, we'd have clip coming out. That's how long it gets. That's the how much your workforce has been eliminated. But can you identify some of the cost savings initiatives that you put on the table? They didn't put it on the table. You put it on the table and to save us and put that $100 million right back into the education, right back into the teachers. You did that.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be your legacy, George, when you leave. And I think you need to put that on the record for us all to share.
I appreciate it. Well, let me start out by saying that we have a 4-year contract, and there were 2,700 layoffs on the table in 2012, as I think everyone here knows. So we didn't want anybody laid off, so we had to make considerable concessions. The first concession that we made is we make a contribution out of our paychecks every 2 weeks to the school district. Our $15,000 employees who are our bus attendants pay $10 a pay or $20 a month. Our employees who make a little bit over $30,000 pay $100 a month back to the school district, and our employees who make over $45,000 pay $180 back a month. So that contribution continues to come out of our paychecks every pay, and that will happen until August 31st of 2013. Our health and welfare fund, we gave back to the school district for what we call holidays, over $2.2 million. We had a Shortman training fund that provided training to our employees, CPR training, computer training, GED training. That was taken back. That was $500,000. So when you do it over 4 years, you're talking about $2 million. So all these are, you know, quadrupled, every number that I'm giving you. Our mechanics and our employees used to get what we call boot money, to have safety shoes on so they can make sure that they go to schools and do their work with safety shoes. That was taken out of the budget also. That saved the school district hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. When you, again, between the contributions back, the boot money, the health and welfare money, the pension payments, everything totals about $25 million a year, and over the 4 years is $100 million.
Again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your years of service.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Council, for giving me the time to speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca Proyorov, Christine Carlson, and Sarah Motten.
Do you want copies? You want copies?
Thank you very much. Please introduce yourself to our record and begin your testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, members of council, for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Rebecca Poyero, and I am a public school parent in Roxborough. My husband and I have sent our children to Cook-Wissahickon Elementary School for the last 6 years, a high-performing neighborhood district school with roughly 80% of its students eligible for free and reduced lunch. I have testified before City Council every single year since the shameful public education cuts of 2011. Over the past 4 years, I have used maybe 12 of my own personal days to make trips to Harrisburg to lobby for education funding, and my message to you and to state legislators remains the same. Fund our children's schools, this time in cursive, but it's still the same message. This is the mandate of the 2014 and 2015 elections. This year, the voters of Philadelphia have spoken directly to you, even those who are leaving the chamber room, and they said, fund our children's schools. It cannot be an either-or with state and city funding. It must be both. While we cannot take the pressure off of Harrisburg, we cannot punt to Harrisburg either. As one council member has said, ultimately, these are our kids. Fund our children's schools. We need sustainable, recurring funding instead of one-time fixes. While the city has done some, it has to do more. We need a funding plan that asks different groups in our city to pay their fair share, not depending solely on regressive taxes or on huge property tax increases, but requiring large corporations and nonprofits to pay their fair share as well. Every year since 2011, our children's schools have been stripped of personnel, programs, and materials: nurses, counselors, music, art, gym, language, reasonable class sizes, tutoring, AP classes, transportation, and more. Our children deserve schools staffed with full-time professionals committed to their education and well-being, not cut-rate, outsourced, privatized nurses or counselors. Our children deserve real science classes with labs, not MOOCs. Fund our children's schools. Finally, a note on timing. We don't have time to play chicken with Harrisburg. That strategy has been tried and failed for the last 4 years. We need council to fund our schools and commit to the city's contribution quickly, because as parents, we shouldn't have to spend our time lobbying you for funding when we could be in Harrisburg. If you don't act, our kids will suffer, and there is no magic bullet, and no one else is coming to the rescue. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning,
Morning.
Councilwoman Blackwell, the rest of the council people that are here. My name is Christine Carlson. I'm a public school parent. I'm also the Democratic committee person in District 1 of Ward 30. Yesterday, we heard a lot, well, yesterday and today, we've been hearing a lot about what's wrong with the school district of Philadelphia. And I'm going to vary from that and talk a little bit about what's going right. And it all starts with a miserable rainy Saturday in March when the Philadelphia Crosstown Coalition's Education Committee, of which I am a member, held a forum to share ideas and energy about how to build a citywide movement in support of neighborhood public schools. In spite of the weather, over 100 committed activists from more than 45 neighborhood schools and civic associations spent 5 hours of collective learning and sharing. Now, we are working to harness this momentum to turn this embryonic network into something greater than the sum of its parts. Our group has decided to focus on 3 things. One is fostering friends of neighborhood schools. This is aiming to form and build individual groups, share information, and find leaders to start friends groups in unrepresented schools. The second is building citywide political voice for neighborhood schools, which is one of the reasons I'm here. And the third is building the brand. Believe it or not, we think we can build a new narrative that focuses on the opportunities for neighborhood public education rather than just the challenges. And I'm talking about this incredibly positive phenomenon because it's occurring independently throughout the city. Philadelphia's increasing desirability as a place to live and raise children is causing hundreds of people, many of them who are young and many who don't have children, as well as neighborhood organizations. They are realizing the importance of the neighborhood public school as an anchor of their community. They are involved in making their neighborhood schools a viable place for all children in their communities. They were the ones who made education such an important issue in the past primary. It's time to recognize these individuals as a vitally important part of your constituencies, and to do what is necessary for the city to adequately support its education system. This is an issue which goes beyond parents of public school children, or even beyond this realization that in order for communities to thrive, they must support their neighborhood school. It is a citywide economic issue that is inhibiting the future growth and progress of the city, and I'm not exaggerating. Moody's Analytics lists the school district's financial situation as the #1 downside to Philadelphia's economic growth. I can understand why Council may not want to fund Dr. Height's request solely through a property tax increase, but there are other ways to commit to meeting our obligation to our young people, and some of them may include vigorously enforcing the school income tax, which is currently unbeknownst to or considered voluntary by many Philadelphians. And in addition to enforcing the school income tax, we should expand it to make it apply to non-wage, non-business income. And you should seriously consider changing the ratio of property taxes to correctly assess a higher land value and a lower improvement value. This will not increase the taxes on properties that are already improved, but will generate additional revenue from owners of vacant lots and discourage landowners from holding on to vacant lots that litter our communities. Much of the talk yesterday and today is framed by supporting the school district as charity, and why should we do it? And I ask you, why not? The city is growing, and many schools are successful in spite of the obstacles we've placed before them. More and more Philadelphians are realizing the importance of their neighborhood schools and putting their time and energy into making them the best that they can be. Now it's Council's turn to change gears and look at school funding as an investment for every citizen in every council district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Maria Guerrero, Lauro Guerrero, and Molly Michael.
Good morning, welcome.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself to our record and begin.
Good morning. My name is Maria Leonides. I am from Mexico, and I am father for 3 kids.
Hola, mi nombre es Lauro. Yo soy el esposo de la señora.
Please pull your mic a little closer.
Y primeramente me gustaría decir, soy un padre orgulloso de tres hijos.
Good morning. My name is Sofia Chaparro. I will be translating for Mr. and Mrs. Guerrero. And this is Lauro Guerrero, and he's the proud father of 3 children that attend the public schools in Philly.
Y soy el único proveedor de mi casa y pueden tener esta situación un poco confusa porque para mí es sencillo dar lo poco que gano en su totalidad para la educación de mis hijos. Sí, que para mí es la educación de mis hijos es importante.
For him, it's simple. He knows that there are difficult decisions to make, but that with the little he earns, he's always willing to give that to his children and to the benefit of their education.
So, para mí es importante ver las clases que dan la escuela en Sauer School, en la clase de inglés-español, cómo las culturas se juntan y es un programa que les cuesta a la escuela y se esfuerzan por ello.
For me, it's incredible to see that my kids who are at Southwark School are able to get the benefit of a bilingual education and to learn languages and the cultures that are served in this school.
Y me siento muy orgulloso de poder dar todo lo que yo obtengo, todos mis beneficios, todo lo que yo trabajo por su educación, porque sé que al final es la mejor opción para salir adelante en esta vida y para nuestra sociedad también, no nada más en una casa.
I feel very proud that everything that I earn, everything that I make from my work goes towards the education of my children and to the classes that they're able to benefit from at school. And I'm very proud of that, and I think that it's a simple question to always be willing to give up what I make for them.
Y también para nuestra sociedad es lo mismo, solo que las decisiones que tomamos.
And for our society as well, it's the same. Education is the key to success, and not just for my children, but in general, for the city as well.
Vengo en representación a todos los niños.
I come representing all the children.
En cuanto yo dejo a mis niños en una escuela, me voy con una confianza plena porque sé que ellos están seguros.
As soon as I drop off my children at school, I leave feeling complete trust that they will be okay in the school.
Porque sé que las escuelas se esfuerzan por dar lo mejor a todos nuestros hijos.
Because I know that schools and all those that work in schools work really hard every day to give our kids the best that they deserve.
Pero también me doy cuenta que las escuelas tienen muchas necesidades.
But I also notice that schools have a lot of needs.
En este caso,
In this case,
por ejemplo, cuando los niños se enferman, no hay una enfermera presente.
when children get sick, there's not always a nurse there.
Me pregunto si hay una emergencia, ¿cuál sería la situación?
I ask myself if there's ever an emergency, what would happen?
Creo que la mayoría de aquí todos somos padres
I think the majority of us here are all parents,
y queremos que nuestros hijos estén seguros en donde ellos los atienden.
and we want our children to feel safe wherever they are.
Así que creo que es nuestra responsabilidad todos cubrir esas necesidades que nuestros hijos tienen.
So I think it is our responsibility, all our responsibility, to meet the needs of our children.
Porque ellos son el gran futuro y nosotros si los apoyamos creo que seremos ejemplo para ellos, para que ellos también apoyen su propio futuro.
Because our children are our future, and we are an example to our children. And if we give them the example that we're ready to support them, they will grow up and also understand that it's their responsibility to support whoever is their future.
Creo que todas las personas que están aquí, alguien más los ha apoyado en el pasado para que ustedes también tengan su carrera como profesionales.
I think everyone who is here has also benefited from the support of somebody or someone or some organization so that the people that are here can have their careers.
Ahora nos corresponde moralmente apoyar a nuestros hijos de esa forma, como nosotros lo fuimos.
Now it is our moral responsibility to support our children the way some of us have been supported as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Sarah Matone.
It's Molly Michael.
Molly Michael.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. My name is...
One moment, sorry.
Okay.
Tony Damon and Andrew Lukov.
Good morning. My name is Molly Michael, and my daughter is a kindergartner at Southwark Elementary in Councilman Squilla's district. And as many of you heard yesterday, Southwark launched a new two-way Spanish immersion program last fall. My daughter and Maria and Lauro's daughter is also part of that program. in the inaugural kindergarten class. And it was this program and the school's leadership that convinced us to invest in our neighborhood school. The dual language program wasn't something that came out of nowhere, fully conceived and funded. It was requested by a school community lucky enough to have a principal who took the idea and ran with it, consulting experts at Penn, working with community members and parents, and receiving support from the district. As a result, my daughter and her classmates are immersed in a program that serves a diverse community across cultural and socioeconomic spectrums, and she can read, write, and speak in 2 languages in kindergarten. It's pretty amazing, right? It's no secret that Southwark has historically struggled with turnover in leadership and dwindling resources like so many of other schools in our city. And while our leadership is now stable, our resources remain dismally small. But because of this immersion program and other developments at the school, Southwark is fast becoming known as a hotbed of effective education and innovation. And yet, with over 600 students, including more than 40% English language learners, Southwark does not have a librarian, a full-time nurse, a music teacher, adequate lunchroom and recess supervision, or a school social worker. So I ask you, if Southwark can nurture and create this dual immersion program that serves a diverse community with almost nothing, what would happen if council granted the district's request for $105 million? What would happen if we could replicate the 2-way immersion program in different languages throughout the city based on each community's needs? What would happen if we did the right thing? But don't do it for me. Do it for Kaya, Salome, Alejandro, Drew, Lucy, Kamaya, Kara, Maritza, Suri, David, John, Naveen, Mariana, Maria, Nicoletta, and the tens of thousands of children in Philadelphia who need your support right now. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Tony Damon. I am the proud principal of Morrell Dobbins CTE High School located in North Philadelphia. I often get to double as the counselor, the nurse, the secretary, a teacher on occasion, social worker, recruitment officer, and community resources liaison. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak before you, and also thank you for your support that allowed us to open school on time. I stand here, or I sit here, with a heavy heart, because when I was here last week, I heard conversations about the potential purchase of a new prison when Dobbins stands to get a renovation this year. But yet we haggle about how much we are to get. Frederick Douglass said that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. This calls me to a student that I met 2 years ago as a new principal at Dobbins. During spring break, this young man was arrested for armed robbery. He was number 1 in his class, and his father had nowhere to go for help for him. All he knew was to come to the school, the place where his child could get help. I immediately began to rustle up some resources. We went down to court for this young man. We got him out. Looking for other resources, we were able to get his record expunged because he was cleared of all charges. Although the practice is to have students return to their neighborhood school, I went down to placement to get this young man back at my school to resume his place as number 1 in his class, took him to Howard University, and he is now studying on a full ride. This is a difficult challenge in the midst of limited resources. He is only one student that I could tell you about. We also have students representing at Penn State, Drexel, Clark Atlanta, Bloomsburg. This year we have students who are already accepted to IUP, Lincoln, Newman, Dell State, University of Maryland, and these are just the students I know of because I work with them personally. I want you to know that this young man was also proficient and/or advanced in all 3 tested area subjects. But I also want you to consider that we are more than just our test scores. If I could shift gears just for a moment to talk about my enrollment, because I know that that is questionable, and schools often are considered for closures when their enrollment is low. When I walked into the school, it was full of students, but students who were there for the wrong reason, and many children who wanted to come but were afraid because they felt they had to fight their way through. I immediately began to work with my team to counsel these students and parents and to work with school district officials to get them into a more appropriate placement that would suit their continued disruption in the school. This year, we received over 2,000 applications for Morrell Dobbins CTE High School, and I am very excited to say that we have accepted 500 of those students. While we recognize that all 500 may not show up, when we had Accepted Students Day just this month, we had at least 200 parents come in to tour the school and make a commitment by buying their school uniform. Just yesterday, I accepted 3 more students. We are growing in a new direction. I invite you all to come out and visit Dobbins. We are Dobbins 3.0 in alignment with Dr. Height's Action Plan 3.0, all students college and career ready at graduation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that testimony. Dobbins is not in my district, but I've been there half dozen times. We share, Councilman Greenlee and I, some people that are very interested in Dobbins, Ward Leader Green and others. The best quote I ever heard about that type of perspective was given maybe 2 years ago about the 2 book bags that go to school. The one carrying the books of the day, and the other carrying the burdens from home in the neighborhood. We thank you for dealing with the second bag of books too. We do. If you look at what Council President wants to do with the school-based family services, we want to help you as government to address some of those other issues, because that choice between school, college, and prison is a real choice that we make every day when we assign our budget priorities. We can either build new prisons, or we can refurbish some of these schools to prevent those young men and women from going into those institutions. So you keep doing what you do. We're going to do what we have to do to make it a little lighter on that book bag for you.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next panel.
Andrew Lukov, Soleil Sosa, and Sierra Regan.
Welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to speak about what makes school important to me. My name is Sierra Reagan, and I am an 8th grader from Andrew Jackson Elementary School. I'm here to testify about why art is important in our school. Art is important to me because it makes me feel alive and fills me up with excitement. I feel that art softens the hardships and challenges in life we are presented with. It's a languageless mean of communication that every person of any age can understand, and it fills up the air with happiness and hope. Art is a precious wonder of the world that needs to be saved and preserved for generations and years to come. Art is revolutionary yet reactionary, and where words have at times failed, art has prevailed. Art makes me feel as though I can connect with people, not only in words, but with imagination and creativity. Art comes in various forms and is in universal meaning. When I share my inner creativity and imagination with others, I feel as though I am giving the best of what is inside of me. Art is a treasure to me because I feel as though it is the single element in life that keeps humanity feeling alive and well. At times, art can speak louder than words and crosses boundaries words cannot. Art gives life to my important ideas while at the same time pushing them forward to make them come true. And that's what makes art magic. Art makes the world more beautiful, and it seeps through the cracks of hopelessness, sadness, and despair, and gives a sense of power, release, and hope. It gives you a different outlook on life and lets you focus on the little things that we miss out on. Art makes me feel as though I'm fulfilling my purpose in life, and I could possibly fill someone's life as well. Art allows people to truly see me for who I am. Art unifies, opens doors, breaks down barriers, and opens our visions. A world without art would be like love without a heart. I am not only speaking for myself today, but for everyone else who doesn't have the opportunity to express themselves and show how art is powerful and gives meaning to many lives as well as mine. If art was taken away from this world or from my life, I'd be living in a world full of darkness. Today we are bringing you paintbrushes to paint a better picture of our schools, because if life doesn't give you color, what do you have? Thank you for your time and the opportunity for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you.
Ron Whitehorn, Helen Gim, Mark Gleason.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name's Ron Whitehorn. I'm the coordinator for PCAPS, Philadelphia Coalition Advocating for Public Schools, which is a coalition of labor and community groups embracing parents, students, educators, and school workers. For 3 years, we've been fighting budget cuts and school closings in pursuit of high-quality, well-funded neighborhood public schools that serve all children. We have a particular vision of what kind of schools we need, as well as a perspective on how to fund them. Beginning with the schools in neighborhoods of greatest need, we want investment in sustainable community schools. We applaud Jim Kenney for his commitment to create 25 community schools if elected mayor this fall. And we also greatly appreciate the initiative of Council President Clark in promoting the community school idea, along with some important ideas for moving it forward. We also want to draw attention to a fight right now for a community school. Youth United for Change, a leading member of our coalition, is fighting to save and transform Kensington Urban Education High School, one of 4 small schools that were won in a long struggle to improve education in that community. The school district seeks to merge urban with Kensington business, a plan that will not produce better outcomes and cuts against the original small school vision that has emphasized close personal relationships between staff and students. The district, having suspended the relevant provisions of the school code, is rushing ahead with their plan without allowing for deliberation and real engagement by the community. YUC, recognizing that the school currently needs improvement, is calling for a process that would transform Urban into a community school with wraparound services, engaging curriculum, restorative practice, and a stronger voice for parents, school staff, and students. We hear all the time about it's all about the students. It's all about the kids. But when will we start listening to the kids? We call on council to hear the pleas of students who are here today and community members and help prevent another school closing. In terms of school funding, while we believe more funding from the state is critical, that doesn't mean the city can't do more. However, calls for increasing taxes on working people are neither fair or likely to pass muster politically, as long as corporations, mega nonprofits, and wealthy people fail to pay their fair share.
That's right.
We have fought in the past and will continue to call for 1, use and occupancy tax reform that would increase taxes on the corporate landlords who got a huge tax windfall thanks to the Adjusted Value Initiative. 2, eliminating the tax abatement on the school district portion of the property tax. It's obscene that a corporation like Comcast with billions in profits can stiff our schools. The tax abatement cost schools this year nearly $50 million. That is not acceptable. 3, implementing a robust pilot program that would raise revenue from the likes of the University of Pennsylvania, one of the biggest property owners in the city, and with an endowment larger than the gross national product of many countries. Taking these steps would not only generate recurring revenue, but demonstrate the city's commitment to tax fairness and equity, and thus create more political support for investing in schools. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before you speak, let me say congratulations to Helen Gem, as you all know. We look forward to her joining us here in January.
I look forward to it too. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Blackwell. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you for your time. My name's Helen Gim. Before earlier this year, I'm one of the co-founders of a group called Parents United for Public Education. I'm a mother of 3 children myself in the public schools. And Parents United was found and built off the idea that there should be a baseline budget for all schools, no matter where they come from, what communities they serve, that we as a city deserve to ensure that every child in every part of the city has essential services in every school, things like a manageable class size, nurses, counselors, guaranteed programs, after-school programs, and that should be the foundation of a school district's budget. It should be the foundation of how we look at how we hold hearings with the district, and that those questions should be answered on a regular basis. It's important to understand that the district does do some things really well. When we look at the current population of the school district, we know that the district serves its immigrant populations very highly and far more than any other category of educational options that are out there. And so it does bother me that a school district that used to, in the 1990s, have a cutting-edge approach towards bilingual and immersion learning in schools is now down to a handful of Spanish elementary bilingual programs in schools. It's basically 5, maybe if Southwark is new this year, that would be the 6th elementary bilingual Spanish program that exists in schools. But all the other ones have been largely eliminated. From our high schools, we used to have Mandarin, Khmer, Russian, Arabic. Those are all gone now, and that is not reflective of what is changing and modifying within our school district. We also know that our district serves special ed students very well, and well, let's say that we serve them at a very high rate. And so we do need to invest in our special ed population. We need to pay attention to what's going on. We know that 25% of our high schoolers are in the DHS or criminal justice system. When they themselves go to schools that lack counselors, that don't have trauma-informed care as being a guiding vision, when they don't have nurses in schools, we're ensuring that problems that they endure when they're only 13 or 14 years old, things that are circumstances that are far beyond their control or even their ability to articulate, are going to become a life sentence for them. And that is punishing, and it's wrong for this city. I want to talk a little bit about how the the process, I know there's been a lot of frustration about school funding, but I want us to understand that we got here through deliberate steps. And I want to talk a little bit about those deliberate steps. The school district over the past couple of years has invested in brand new programs that never existed before. This last week, they are exploring a $10 million contract for an online blended learning program. And we're looking at closing down a school, and that's wrong. We need to understand that city officials went before the school district last month demanding a $55 million TIF so that the gallery could have a designer mall updo. And that's a problem too. It's not right to have city officials acting as vehicles for a private interest. PREET, at the very least, should be going up in front of our schools and facing off against our parents and the young people and demanding why their $55 million tax break is suddenly a priority. And I also want to talk about charter schools. This year alone, the School District of Philadelphia opened up 6 new charter schools in this city at a projected cost of probably at least between $3 to $5 million per school, 150, we're talking about a significant amount of money over the next 5 years. We know that 39 charters applied for schools, and that each one of them will have an opportunity that got denied to go to the state for a contract. We also know that a charter school that was denied a charter went to the state and got a 5-year contract with them, even though the SRC voted to close that down. And in 2012, when we took on a $300 million debt, we added 5,200 charter school seats at a cost of over $45 million a year. And so these are conscious choices that we're going and walking towards. It's not that charters are good or bad. We're talking about competing interests within the school district itself. We're talking about public school students who don't have a voice or a space to be able to talk about their needs, their need for access to nurses, their need for access to health care, to counselors and supports in schools. And then we're talking about city officials who are going up and acting on behalf of business interests in this city, to talk about individual charters that are going up against it. So we have to understand that we understand that everybody in the city supports education. That's not the issue. But we've got a competing situation here where public schools are no longer a top priority, and that we have to understand it as not being a good or bad issue, but something that we have to prioritize now. The city has an opportunity, and city council, the ball has always been in council's court. It's one of the reasons why I value this body so much. In your hands is the ability to not just talk about school funding, but to talk about fair taxation, to talk about the fair share lift that every Philadelphian should contribute to our city and to our schools. The large corporations and nonprofits, we can talk about UNO, we can talk about the tax shift. Those are all within our opportunities, and we have that power to be able to move on. But we have to understand that at the same time that there are going to be competing interests here at this table, here in this city, who are going to look at things in a lot different way. We need to talk about our schools today. We need to talk about them tomorrow. We need to be talking about them in the summer and in September. But this is going to be a top priority of the city. It was a top priority in the election, and I wanted to thank everybody for the time to talk about that.
Thank you. Mr. Gleason, good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Mark Gleason. I'm here today as a city taxpayer, a public school parent, and as executive director of the Philadelphia School Partnership. We're a nonprofit focused on increasing access to educational opportunity. I'm here to urge City Council to commit to a multi-year phase-in of the proposed 9% property tax increase. Since 2011, PSP has granted more than $35 million to 35 schools, stretching across nearly every council district in the city. Those include roughly 10 traditional public schools, roughly 10 traditional charter schools, 10 district charter conversion schools, and 5 Catholic and private schools. In all these schools, our team works closely with school leaders to develop and review budgets and other matters of school finance. In 4 years, we have gained a deep knowledge of the differences in how schools spend funds and of the challenges that they face in trying to provide a comprehensive, quality education. Among other challenges, we have seen how formulaic district budgeting rules limit principals' ability to tailor strategies to the particular needs of individual schools. A clear finding in our work has been that the biggest driver of school quality is how schools spend their budgets. There are many examples in Philadelphia of schools with comparable budgets, similar student populations, and vastly different academic outcomes. Notably, there are also examples of schools with comparable budgets, different student populations, and vastly different outcomes. We should not expect that an infusion of new money into the city's lowest performing schools will by itself transform those schools. To achieve dramatic improvement, first must come clearly articulated goals. Second, a school must develop comprehensive and integrated strategies that are aligned to those goals. And third, available revenues must be budgeted in a way that supports those strategies above all else, taking into account the specific needs and challenges at individual schools. It troubles me when the chair of the SRC says, as she did yesterday, that there is nothing left to cut. She also recently told Philadelphia Magazine that the district doesn't need to change its approach, it just needs more money. Yet when the district recently released its school progress reports, it showed that 83 of 218 district-run schools, that's nearly 40%, are in the lowest tier of performance. The district labels that tier intervene, demonstrating that dramatic changes in strategic approach and how monies are spent are needed in those 83 schools. If we're being honest, many of those schools should be closed. Clearly, much of what the district is spending money on is not working. There have to be cuts so that funds can be redirected to more effective strategies. Every change in practice can't be funded by new dollars. Some or even most changes need to be funded by existing dollars redirected from well-intended but ineffective approaches. At the same time, it is necessary to ensure that revenues to the school district are growing over time. Another clear finding.
Everybody in city council, everyone in city council deserves to be heard. You may have your opinion, you may come up and express it, but you cannot deny a person their right to be heard, whether you agree or disagree. Mr. Gleason, please continue.
Thank you, Councilwoman. At the same time, it is necessary to ensure that revenues to the school district are growing over time. Another clear finding of our work is that school costs, no matter what type of school, increase every year. While salaries in district schools have not risen in the past 2 years, but the cost of health benefits, pensions, and other benefits programs have, because staffing accounts for nearly half of all school expenditures and benefits account for more than a quarter of all staffing costs. Rising benefits costs have a significant impact on schools. Schools need revenue sources that grow from year to year in order to keep pace with rising costs. Otherwise, effective uses of taxpayer funds become threatened and principals lose a crucial margin of flexibility. City Council members, you deserve plaudits for helping to significantly increase the city's flow of dollars to public schools over the past few years. But with schools still in crisis and the city's economic future threatened by the abundance of academically struggling schools, there is no opportunity to cap the revenue growth. What is needed is a move away from the annual drama of trying to identify new taxes and one-time stopgap revenue generators, and a turn toward establishing a pattern of predictable, moderate, and slowly growing revenues. The recent redirection of the 1% sales tax and the city cigarette tax have netted the district roughly $180 million in new recurring revenue. That's a significant boost. Hopefully, a growing economy will lead to steady growth in the sales tax revenue. However, experience in other cities indicates that the cigarette tax is likely to be a flat or even declining revenue stream. The bulk of local revenue that flows to public education comes from the city property tax. Keeping that rate flat from year to year puts the school district in a vice. Rising costs are not fully matched by rising revenues from some of the smaller revenue streams, and the squeeze is on. Perhaps the most important learning when it comes to school budgets is the importance of planning time. This also represents the most important reason to establish a pattern of annual, moderate, but steady property tax increases. This would go a long way toward making city-based school funding predictable for Superintendent Height and the system's 220 principals. When costs rise and city revenues are projected to be flat from one year to the next, and with the state not providing clarity about the amount of state funding flowing to Philadelphia schools until late June or even later, Schools are unable to have firm knowledge of their available budgets for the coming school year, and as a result, they can't plan. They can't accurately determine how many staff will fit in the budget, and so they must delay hiring and transfer decisions. This lack of planning impedes principals' ability to establish goals and develop strategies. It essentially forces hundreds of schools to run in catch-up mode from September onward. It's a big reason the district began trying to recruit 400 new teachers last December, in the middle of the school year, and when few good teachers are actually in the job market. This is one of the advantages charter and suburban schools have. Because charter funding is set by a formula that is based on prior year spending, they know in May what their budget for the coming year will be. Similarly, annual increases in property taxes, along with a lower reliance on state funds, give suburban schools predictability that city principals can only dream of. Taking some of the drama out of the city budgeting process by establishing a pattern of annual but affordable property tax increases would go a long way toward lessening this problem. Let me be clear, as a taxpayer and former school board member, I do not see a one-year 9% property tax hike as reasonable, especially when the inflation rate is near zero. But phasing in a 9% hike over 3 or perhaps even 4 years, that would be enormously sensible policy. Please don't hear this and decide that I'm letting the state off the hook. It too needs to ensure stable, predictable, growing sources of funding for schools. Beyond that, the state needs to move to a weighted student funding formula that prioritizes the extra costs required to educate disadvantaged youth. But the state can't do it alone. Both city and state revenues have to grow steadily over time, and because these are our city schools that we're discussing, the city has to be willing to lead the way.
Mr. Gleason, you'll have to conclude.
Sure. Sorry for running on. Look, nobody likes property taxes. Nobody likes that they go up, but they have real benefits for school funding. They yield more stable revenue streams. They create predictability for school leaders. And as Paul Levy, Jerry Sweeney, and others have thoughtfully argued, they are less likely to scare away employers and jobs than taxes on income, sales, and other activities. And a final word about accountability, because I know that was a big topic yesterday. I just want to urge caution when you think about accountability. Accountability is not about mandating inputs. It's not about how many teachers or how many nurses or how many textbooks. It's about the outcomes we want for our kids. Are they graduating from high school? Are they going to college? Are they going to trade school? Are they prepared to go into the military? Accountability has to be about outputs, not inputs. If you make it about inputs, you actually lessen accountability because you then create the ability for a principal or a school leader to say, you told me what to do, you have to own the results, not the school. It's the wrong way to do accountability. We need accountability for outcomes for school performance, and that's the most important thing. So I thank you for the time. I have a few remarks I didn't get to, which I'll make sure I leave behind written copies of. And thanks so much.
Thank you. We're happy to make all of your We're happy to make all of your comments part of the record. Thank you very much.
Darren Spillman, Jamie Kudera, Ian Gavigan.
Okay. Good morning, Councilwoman Blackwell, members of council. I'm Jamie Kudera. I'm here today in support of funding for the School District of Philadelphia. I'm a graduate of Girls High and the parent of 2 students in the district. Like many people in this room, the election of a new governor and an exciting local primary have given me hope. But my hope is tempered by concern that we have forgotten what to ask for. We have forgotten what a normally funded school looks like. We are happy if one of our 3 children is lucky enough to attend a school with a library. We are relieved that our school with over 2,000 teenagers has 2 or 3 school counselors. We accept that a medical professional is in our asthmatic child's school building only 3 days a week. We have forgotten what an art class looks like and why it is important, or that PSATs used to be offered to all students in high school. My daughter dreads the school lunch, not because of the food, but because she doesn't want to spend 1/3 of her lunch period waiting in line, because that's how long it takes to get a meal in an understaffed cafeteria. I am here to remind you that what we have gotten used to is not right. It is fundamentally unfair to expect our children to learn and develop into leaders and citizens in schools with such limited resources and opportunities. I respect your desire for accountability and hope that you extend that to charter schools as well and focus on outcomes that matter, such as increased high school graduation rates, reductions in violence, and higher literacy rates. I know that you are frustrated with state control. We parents are frustrated with state control as well and travel to Harrisburg often for this reason. But ultimately, this is our city, these are our kids, these are our schools. I urge you to prioritize school district funding, strategize about long-term revenue sources, including ones that force major businesses and nonprofits to pay their fair share, and for us all to think big. Think about what it will take to make this a strong school district worthy of the city and children we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kudera.
Good morning. Thank you, Councilwoman Blackwell and members of City Council for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ian Gavigan. I'm the Research and Policy Fellow at the Education Law Center of Pennsylvania. The Education Law Center's mission is to ensure access to quality public education for all children in Pennsylvania. And we know that for years, the state has failed to give our schools the resources they need to serve all students. We have been hard at work to change that. As leaders of the Campaign for Fair Education Funding, we are pushing the state to adopt and fund a fair funding formula based on actual student and district needs. And along with our partners at the Public Interest Law Center, we have brought a major suit against Pennsylvania for violating its state constitutional mandate to maintain a thorough and efficient system of public education. And the budget process is heating up, and the budget for education is still an open question in Harrisburg. It still isn't clear what will happen, when it will happen, or how much the state will provide our city's struggling schools. What is clear is that the students in our city cannot depend on Harrisburg alone. Meanwhile, the educational crisis facing our district is especially acute when you look at the most at-risk learners. Students with special needs, English language learners, and students living in poverty are concentrated in our city's neighborhood schools, where funding cuts have decimated staff and gutted educational opportunities. Only new and predictable funding will help these schools make up lost ground and begin to provide all the services their students need. Providing new dollars to Philadelphia's schools is one of the best investments we can make. Research shows that poor students educated in public schools that experience sustained, predictable investments over time grow up to have lower rates of poverty, higher educational attainment, and lower dependency on public supports throughout their lives. The Education Law Center's own research focusing on Pennsylvania has shown that investment in public schools have led to increased student outcomes on state exams, and investments in specific services lead to big payoffs. For example, when students with special needs, English language learners, and students in poverty have access to libraries and librarians, they see markedly higher results in reading and writing, and that's research done right here at home. Countless studies and common sense show money matters. We urge you to support Philadelphia's children. They cannot wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gail Clouden, Horace Clouden, Leah Clouden. Orlando Acosta, Tony Mickelwain, Susan Gabrysky.
Thank you. Feel free to introduce yourself to the record and begin.
I think it's still morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Leah Clouden. My parents, Horace and Gail, they just stepped out for a moment, so they're not here to speak right now. Greetings, City Council members. I am here today testifying before you because I care. All our communities matter, and our ancestors did it for us. With my family in unity of hope for a better educational system for the children in the Philadelphia public system, I speak. I started to write and deliver a testimony dissecting the superintendent's 3.0 action plan, but I decided not to because it was done already. Times of diminishing resources require an even greater commitment to equity. This is the first line of the action plan 3.0. What is equity? A stock or any other security representing an ownership interest. A company's balance sheet, the amount of the funds contributed by the owners, the stockholders, plus the retained earnings or losses. The value or an asset after all the liabilities or debts have been paid. The quality of being fair and impartial. It seems to me that the only thing the current administration wants to do is balance the books. How can they stand on the grounds of equity when you give principals full autonomy? How can you stand on the grounds of equity when they close 31 schools and or facilities based on the findings that they couldn't afford to keep them? For about 3 years, totaling over $12 million, and with another $1 million in renovations for 2 facilities they don't own, Science Leadership Academy and Constitution High. They're paying this amount per year, $2 million for both schools. These schools do not have a lunchroom, auditorium, and or yard. That money could have went to supplying nurses and or libraries. Where do their priorities lie? You have schools that can't even get the basics, a math teacher for high school students and a biology teacher and a lab. Another school has those AP classes, but the instructor has no longer been showing up, so those children can't even finish because the substitute is not certified. If you decide to give the school district money, please consider making deductions. $13 million for the 3 years of the leasing of 2 buildings for the school that could have easily fitted into other schools, and any other findings that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cloud.
Praise the Lord. Good afternoon. My name is Tony R. McElwain, and I come standing before you or sitting in reference to education. And I asked God this morning, what do I come and I speak to City Council about? Because as a minister of the gospel, I am careful what I say to God's people. And so I'm coming here to share a brief testimony. Maybe 40-something years ago, I graduated from William Penn High School brought in Jefferson Street. And I came out of William Penn High School not knowing how to read or write. And because of this, I ran into poverty, prostitution, drugs. I ran into abuse for 30-something years, homelessness for 40 years. And so I'm saying to the council now, I became an advocate for education. I had 3 beautiful kids, and I didn't train my kids. We stayed in shelters, and we journeyed through Philadelphia. But I'm saying even the school couldn't supply the needs, or as a mother coming from abuse, I was scared to share information with the teachers. My kids came with used clothes on, and they didn't have food to eat, and they were teased, and they was picked on every day of their life, but I still stood strong, even getting choked and beat. I always taught my kids that education was very important, and I graduated not reading and writing, so by me having children, I instilled to them that education is key. And so I'm, as a woman of God and of the gospel, if you look at Exodus, it talks about when the Pharaoh gave out the word to kill off the firstborn, to kill off our children. Education is very important. So I'm standing here before you, and I thank God at 56 years old, I just graduated from Harcum College, and I came out with a degree in leadership. And that's only because God got a hold of me. My kids didn't have a library. We didn't have school buses. I gathered my kids in the corner when we didn't have food, and I instilled the Word of God in them, and I instilled in education. When I was beat down, I went to homeschool meetings and parents' meetings, and parents did not show up. Parents do not show up at the meetings, so I became an advocate for the school district of Philadelphia. And so now the Lord has separated me from that abuse, and so now I stand in the gap for kids in school. And I'm saying it's very important. I'm not just coming here to talk about money. Education is key, but I got a higher education, because if it was not for God, the enemy would have took me out. So I thank God that I can stand here as a testimony. Education is important, and I'm not going to leave until I tell you that all three of my children, my daughter has a bachelor's degree as a teacher. She's graduating from Chestnut Hill College. My son Santino just graduated from Delaware of the Arts, and he's going for animation. So don't tell me, hallelujah, that a budget, don't tell me that a pencil or paper, when you're determined, hallelujah, to do what is right, it will pay off at the end. And so I look around and I look at the children and I look at the adults. We're going to have to be accountable to our children, hallelujah. We will. But I thank God for giving me the opportunity to stand before this great woman, Janie Blackwell. I followed her for years and years and years. She's a great woman of God. So I thank God for education is key. It's very important.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind remarks. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Gabreski. I'm the Director of Education Voters, so I come here as both an education policy person. I'm also a mother of 3 children in Philadelphia Public Schools, so I'm here as a mother. I also pay my taxes, so I'm here as a taxpayer. And I want to actually have three points I want to make today. One, we got sent a bill. We have to pay it. Right? The school district is telling us what we need, and I am with you. I will stand with City Council asking tough questions of the district about what they're planning to do with our money. But we do know from research that money matters. We do know that our children many children don't have art, some don't have recess, they don't have the science equipment that we need. So I am here to say to City Council, please let's pay that bill that we've been sent. Now, I was watching yesterday on the internet, and one of the things that I was sitting there thinking is here are the questions that I wish I would see you guys asking. So one suggestion for the future is that consider having public hearings before you bring the district in, so that some of the questions that we have as a community can be asked of them. So along the lines of what we're talking about in terms of outputs and inputs and outcomes, I would like to know what kinds of programs, what would the district need to do exactly to increase the graduation rate? What kinds of things are they pursuing? How much are the cost of those things? I'd like to know how much art and music every first and second and third grader is getting. I'd like to get an update on the state of the science equipment and what it would cost to provide every high school in the city with a science lab that's fully equipped, because I think those are the kinds of things that we want to know about where our money is going. And then I wanted to use my final minute to take a shot at this whole accountability thing. It's really true that we can't point at an educator and let the educator say to us, well, I gave them a book. That's true, but when we talk about accountability, I think the previous testifier really had it wrong, because when we talk about accountability, what we're really talking about is accountability for us. When we point at schools and ask them to do more, the question that we need to really ask of ourselves is, did we give them everything that we needed to give them and that they needed to produce those results? So this question of accountability isn't just saying to schools, here, we'll give you however little money we want, and if you don't get results, you're doing a bad job. The question is really, what is it they need to provide every student with their full set of needs, whether or not that's ELL services, tutoring, counseling, nursing, and what do we do to make sure that they're getting a full set of resources to provide the services, and then we can hold them accountable. We're not really there yet, so I'm going to urge you to do your part. Yes, we continue to work on the state funding. Other folks have testified to that well. There are numerous sources on the table, including UNO. I'd be willing to talk about the soda tax again, minor, modest real estate increases, and I think the land tax are all good ideas, but we have to pay this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me note, my staff just reminded me about Mother Bertha Simmons. You can't see her picture well, but were she here, she would testify about prayer in schools. As many of you know, she passed away last year at the age of 87, and so she can't make that suggestion or recommendation. And so we will add that here because Bertha Simmons would do that. Thank you to my staff. And now, Brother Acosta.
Thank you, Chairman Janie Blackwell, and thank President Clark for doing the public testimony in community schools and everything like that. I didn't have every time
That's all right.
enough to-
Introduce yourself to the record, please.
Orlando Acosta, that's Orlando Acosta. I didn't have time to get everything prepared that I needed to, but I did want to say, every year we come in here and, well, the district is coming here to ask City Council for appropriated funds for schools and different things of that sort, which we do need schools to, we do need funds to run the schools, of course. But the problem is that we need to have that accountability of how the funds are being used. And until we have communities sitting at the table with city, state officials and the school district, it's always going to be into this problem where we always have these shortfalls because only the people that are living in these districts, whether it be West Philly, North Philly, South Philly, and so forth, to be able to tell you exactly what's needed in every school. And until that is done and until people are sitting at the table, the ones that live in the community, because you can look at a spreadsheet all day. You can look at numbers all day, but that doesn't tell you if a special needs child needs services, if a parent tells you, my child needs this. Each individual child has their own individual needs. And until they be able to tell you what's needed for that school or that particular class or that particular child or individual, then you're going to always have this shortfall of, well, we got to take money from music. We have to do this. We have to do that. So the problem is that until you have each individual person sitting down from each individual area of the city, along with the city and state officials, to be able to tell you what's actually needed in the schools, then that's going to be the primary issue of having that shortfall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta. Mr. Acosta. Thank you very much.
Horace and Gail Clouden, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience. We're sorry you stepped out for a moment.
No problem.
Did quite well. Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Horace Clouden. I'm a building engineer for the school district.
Speaking as community.
And speaking as a community concerned person. I'd just like to start off by saying we attended 6 of these budget hearing meetings that the school district had put out throughout the city the last month. And what was interesting was that hearing the testimony from the principal of Dobbins School, which we were there 3 weeks ago, that when I alluded to Dr. Height's plan of how many CTE seats, he had a plan coming in at 2012 where his goal was to reach 12,000 seats by the year 2017. And at the time, he had no information on where he was at in that 12,000 seat. But what was more interesting was that the principal didn't allude to the fact that what she said a half an hour ago, that 2,000 people had applied for her school and they accepted 500. I find that just overwhelming, because the school district has on its website 111 CTE programs and 37 occupations at 28 high schools. But when you go on their website, it doesn't tell you where the trade is actually located in the school district. So that's one thing to that issue about where did the 2,000 children come from. And the other thing is this. Yesterday at City Council, they had the head of the CTE department, and we brought up, well, it was brought up about the CTE program that's being put in Ben Franklin. And I'm wording it differently. You have a CTE school, which is Dobbins, which is half full. Why wasn't that CTE program placed there? And the response was, well, we didn't want to overcrowd the school because we're on a 3-year, $40 million project. So we wanted to keep the enrollment low. So I think that's just one example of how 440 isn't talking to its principals. And to add insult to injury on that particular item or example, they have what they call a Dobbins life cycle replacement. And they list down here $60 million for repairs. And it would take 3 years to do these repairs. It actually takes 2 years to build a school. So I don't know why would it take that particular school 3 years for this project, and then why not just add another $20 million and build a brand new school? You know, here's another management decision or lack of experience. Okay, now, what I'd like to start off with is just saying this. I'm no for the vote, because the way it's stated is that the homestead exemption people would pay for this tax increase. Here you have people who are submitting a form to get a tax break, and you're going to turn around and charge them for what they want a break for. I don't know if the public is aware of that or not, but that's what this is about, this $105 million. Now, the other thing is this. Everybody talks about the $200 to $300 million. Well, let's talk about the $7 billion that the school district already had go through its fingers. What did we get for $7 billion? Well, hey, let's see. We got school closures, between 20 and 30 schools, okay? What we got was quality seats. This is a new term that the administration brought in, quality seats. So how many quality seats did we get for $7 billion? Well, let's give them some numbers. Let's give them some seats. Let's say he got 1,000 seats. He produced 1,000 quality seats since they've been here. Because his 3 reinvented high schools only produced 300 seats. The little programs, I'm sorry about the children learning Spanish or learning a second language, that's nice. They're kindergartners. You know, we have 7th graders that don't even have this opportunity. People that are really trying to make that decision in life, which path they want to go. I don't know how you say which one is more important, but that's an example right there. Okay, so we have 1,000 quality seats this administration has produced. Oh, excuse me, there's 130,000 students. So what percentage of that is quality seats? Now, here we go with another example. We've been as a family harping on this since day one. You have 2 high schools, Science Leadership Academy and Constitution High. They leased both of those schools at $2 million apiece. Now, what did the CFO say yesterday? I don't know if he was being flipped or he just wanted to say it, because I don't know if you know, he put in his resignation, so he has really 3 more weeks to go. But he said, we're looking at a 10-year lease with these guys. Now, just imagine. It's been 3 years. You're talking they already invested $12 million in schools that don't even have an auditorium, don't even have a gym. Plus, you close high schools that these children could have easily been transferred to. Now, here again, well, why should these children go to these schools? Well, why not? You close BOP, you close Germantown, you closed University City, and you told them children, you got to find another school to go to. So why couldn't we do the same with SLA and Constitution High School? Okay, well, let's don't say that to SLA. Let's say this to SLA. you created an off-campus site at Bieber. Now, Bieber has a SLA off-site, which they probably have maybe 60 to 90 children. SLA has 500 children, the main site. That whole site can fit in the SLA off-site. Here again, saving $2 million. But no, I don't know. Maybe my logic isn't right. But to add insult to injury again, in their proposal, here, these are their books. These ain't our books. These are their books. They got an FY projection of $500,000 renovation for both of those locations. $500,000 each. What are they renovating? Are they renovating leased properties? What did these people do to get this type of contract with the school district? Who do they know? You know, it's bad enough the school district sold these properties to these people. Now they're really getting us. Now, here we go. What else did we get for our $7 billion? Okay, this is what we got for our $7 billion. Each year, there's at least, if you do the math, since Dr. Height yesterday said, it costs $8,000 to educate a child. Now, that doesn't matter if it's a charter child or if it's a public high school child. It's $8,000. But what does the district receive for that child? It receives $13,500. So that's a difference of $5,000. If you look at it, where's the $5,000 at? Per child, per 200,000 children. Let's not separate this now. Let's put them all together in the same box. But what would the district say? Well, you have special needs children. You know, they're a little bit more. So, we can't tell because we got special needs children. Okay, let's add the special needs children. Let's say $5,000 off the top for them. So you still have the amount. And the amount is $1 billion in maybe non-mandatory contracts. Now, guess what? The district said for $7 billion, last year we saved you $6 million. You saved us $6 million from a $2.6 billion contract. What's wrong with you? Budget? Thank you. From a $2.6 billion budget, somebody needs to be fired. I'm glad the guy resigned, so we don't have to fire him, okay? I'm glad he resigned. Now, $1 billion, and we're looking at non-mandatory contracts. And what does that mean? That means, guess what? You don't need that bell that's ringing, because we can go over the PA system and say, the class is being dismissed. So it's different types of infrastructure, it's different types of contracts that we can say, even say to SEPTA that we give $100 million off the top to, and wait for them to give us a rebate check of what we didn't spend. That's SEPTA, $100 million contract. Come on, people. It's in here. When they say transparency, transparency. The little resolutions that everybody doesn't want to go to or doesn't look on the internet when they have their little SRC meetings. You better look at your SRC meetings. They're giving away at least $10 million a month on contracts. So what are we crying about? We're crying about $105 million. We're crying about $105 million. Come on. They're giving away $1 billion in contracts. And let's say, I'm no statistician, but let's say 75% of them are non-mandatory contracts. So when you have a non-mandatory contract, you can say to somebody, I'm sorry, but we can't use your services this year. And that's all you got to say. But guess what? They use their services. Now it's a game that they're playing. Here's the lowest bidder. He comes in at $2 million. He gets a $2 million bid. He's the lowest bidder. Now there's an amendment 5 months down the road saying this. Oh, well, I need an extra $100,000. Well, I thought your lowest bid was $2 million. I thought you were supposed to take everything for $2 million. It's a work change order. We all do that, so it's $100,000. But to add insult to injury on that, they had one particular resolution that they charged the district $100,000 because somebody in procurement didn't file the paper on time. $100,000 paper. Come on, y'all. Come on, $100,000 paper that they and add insult to injury again. You only have 11 people in procurement that's overseeing this $2.6 billion budget. But yet you have a SRC committee that's now going to have a $2 million budget and going to have a $3 million budget next year. What do they need that kind of money for to already pass what they know they're going to pass? You saw the relationship yesterday between the superintendent and the head of the SRC. Do me a favor, can you pass this for me? They're going to pass this stuff. It's 99% approval is yes. This is what we're dealing with. For our $7 billion, we have a system of inexperienced managers, just like one of the councilmen said, is lack of management. But no, it's inexperienced management. It's the type of management where, well, hey, I just lost my job in this department. Can you help me out? Well, yeah, I'll put you over here in this department with no experience. That's what's running the school district right now.
Thank you. We need you to summarize, Mr. Cloud.
Basically, what I'm saying is this. It's halftime. And you have to change the quarterback.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cloud. Okay, Mama Gail.
Thank you. Thursday.
Please identify yourself.
I'm sorry. My name that I was born with is Gail Stewart, and my married name, 40 years this month or next month, is Gail Stewart Clouden. And I had to recognize my ancestors by using the name Stewart. I rang a bell at the SRC meeting last week, and this is the bell that I used. And to me, it symbolizes time for a change in administration. As the descendant of folks that were enslaved, I see a cycle. And being in Philadelphia, to me, is very, very significant to me because I'm one of those people that people talk about that had a near-death experience. I call it a new life experience, where I actually stopped breathing and went to God, and he sent me back and told me very specifically back to Philadelphia because we were at that time in South Carolina, so I'm on a mission. And so when you all hear me, young people, it's for you that he sent me back for. He sent me back to save many of you. And he sent me back to this platform, which is education, because that's how many of us are lost. I sat in an SRC meeting one day, and Mr. Green said to me when my time was up by their timer that he was sent there to keep order. And I'll never forget that day because that was a day that I had in my possession a document that I found that morning where 3 of my ancestors were owned by a white family. And a lot of times I talk about the past, and people will look and think, why is she talking about slavery? Why is she talking about that? Because one thing I know is people look at his story, and it revolves, it recycles. And so I say it because I don't want to see us enslaved again. And that's why I stand. And that's what I said before, that I'm standing for our children. I'm standing strong and proud for you all and those that will come behind you. Because guess what? We're living with, as I keep saying, decisions that were made generations ago. That's what you're going through right now. People made decisions, and that's why I tell the SRC, what you think, feel, say, and do today affects us generations from now. People made decisions about you, and I'm gonna say it again. I got a job at the phone company at 16 years old. I spoke to folks that were there that were Caucasian that began working at 12 and 13. I got a job through a school-to-work program. Again, folks that were there got their jobs at 12 and 13 years old. There are 2 different Philadelphias. There are probably 4 different Philadelphias if you sat down and talked about it for real. I want to bring the elephant in the room because I rode around on a tourist bus on Sunday, and I looked around as we were traveling through Philadelphia, and I looked at who was visiting and who was serving. I'm tired of seeing my people begging. I'm tired of seeing my people selling water. I'm tired of them asking, can I have $1? Can you spare something to eat? It shouldn't be, and it should start with these young people right now and those that are coming behind now. I'm gonna tell you, we've traveled. My husband got his job at 18 at the phone company and retired at 40. You know our story. And I'm saying this now for you young people, my husband worked for the school district for 7 years and got sick. He got carbon monoxide poisoning that almost took his life. For a year, my daughter and I helped to bring him back. He couldn't walk more than 10 minutes. Guess what? 3 years ago, and the case has not come up yet. How much has to be paid to people? How long does it take? All we asked for was 1 year, his pay for 1 year. This man had never been absent, never been late, go through any building, been in over 100 schools, would go in any building before anybody else came in to make sure it was safe. I'm gonna tell you, I'm not saying it because it's him. I'm saying how many other cases are sitting, how many lawyers, how many law firms are being paid. They sent him up to almost New York in a chauffeured car. Was that necessary when a doctor could have been found in Philadelphia to see him? Dumb stuff. I've never said stupid so much in my life to this last year. I've never said crap in my life until this last year. I sit and I listen to stupid stuff repeatedly every month by people who are supposed to be educated. I'm watching and it looks good when the people come in and they get the pictures taken, but my heart goes out to all the others that are not in that position. All these children that are not getting what they deserve, and it's wrong, and it's wrong, and it's wrong, and I will keep saying it. It is about color. It is about race. It is about class, and we need to say it and say it loud. Schools are great. School-based programs are great, Janie, and anybody else that's listening, but I'm going to tell you something loud and clear. I don't want our black children to keep seeing white folks coming in like they're our savior. In these clinics, I saw the people that want to come out, and I saw those folks that sat in the audience here months ago who are resources. Where are the black resources? Where are people that look like them to stand in front of them? I'm tired of us begging, and guess what? When we don't get jobs, what do people do? They commit crime and they beg. I'm seeing more prostitutes in my community than I've seen ever. People's mothers, people's sisters, people who that's all they got to sell is their bodies because they didn't learn anything in schools. When I said generational, they stopped teaching many of our children many years ago. I've been around 30 years. I'll never forget speaking to a regional superintendent, and I said to this man, God bless you, Walter Scrivens. I said to this man, is there a time period set aside where you will go back, when they were creating the middle school system, is there a period where you'll go back and change it if it doesn't work? And he told me my question was so ludicrous, he wasn't even going to answer me. That's the kind of arrogance, that's the kind of ego, and I see ignorance all the time when we deal with the school district, when we ask questions, when we call them on stuff. Everybody's got this smart answer, or smug answer, or attitude, instead of just telling us. And most of the times they don't want to tell us because they don't know the answers. I don't have a whole lot more to say, but I'm on a mission, and I said it. I'm on a mission to save as many of these children. It's not just about black, because everybody that comes through those doors, I don't care where they are, and through these doors are benefiting because of something our people did. We're the ones that stood for equality. And how dare they think that everybody else is supposed to come through and get it and not the people that stood for it? That's ludicrous. And it's his time is up.
Thank you both. and Leah as well. Thank you both.
Keenan Martin, Essence Whiting. Essence Whiting, Carl Moore.
Thank you very much. Please, thank you for your patience. Please give us your name and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keenan Martin. I am a youth leader at Youth United for Change and a freshman at Kensington Capital High School. I stand in solidarity with my peers of the Kensington Multiplex in fighting for preservation of our neighborhood schools. I have a question for everyone. Do you want the Kensington Multiplex to fail? The future of the Kensington Multiplex depends on us and everyone in this room. We are looking forward to finishing our high school years with the original small schools plan and not the plan being forced down us by the school district. First, we demand that the city council helps keep the original small schools plan of having no more than 400 students in each of the multiplex high schools. Putting more than 400 students in the multiplex creates a difficult learning environment. We want all the teachers to know our names, full names, and social ID number. This creates a better community, better family. Small schools create families and build stronger relationships inside and outside of schools. Secondly, we demand to have a formal process for all changes that are happening within Kensington Multiplex. These are our schools we attend and not the SRC or the City Council. Our voices must be heard to ensure that the Kensington Multiplex has a formal process for all administrative and student discipline policies that are effective and do not push students out of school. We demand that we have a multiplex coordinator that will oversee the administrative duties of the multiplex and to ensure that all 5 schools are working together towards a strong collective goal. With the Kensington Multiplex coordinator, students' voices will be heard. The district needs to stop destroying the Kensington Multiplex, and City Council must intervene and support creating a local control school board that advances our society and doesn't push us back. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carl Moore. I guess I'm the last one. I'm in support of you. I was here a year ago, and I spoke on the school board in reference about the different things he was doing. I told you back then that he said he was closing those schools and it was necessary for him to close the schools to keep the budget in line. I told you he was a liar. Dr. Height is a liar. The whole board over there is a bunch of liars. They're there for the purpose of shutting down our public school system. I told you back then that Dr. Height was about the business of shutting the union down. Now he's about the business of outsourcing all different things within the school system. He has killed 2 of our black kids by not having no nurses there. City council sit here, and I know the rest of you city council members know me, and you're in your rooms. Hey, if you don't do something about it, come November, after November, you will hear from me. Because I've saved my money up for lawyers to sue every last one of you. This man has told you a lie. He told you back then if you shut the schools down. No. I told you back then it was $300 million that he owed. After you passed out the tax reform of 1%, still need more, still need more, still need more, still need more. After the city tax, cigarette tax was placed on, in an interview with the newspaper, he said we still need $82 million. Okay? Everybody's giving money. You have to realize when he came here, he gave everybody in that school board a raise. And everybody got a raise. Then he said, no, we're going to go back. Then he told us that he was going to take a cut and pay. And here lately, last year, he wants that cut back. That $30,000, he wanted it back. This man is full of liars. How long are you people in city council going to continuously let this man lie to you? The city of Philadelphia people have spoken. Get rid of the fool. But the fool got other people going along with it. He got those other millionaire people. They tried to bundle their money into controlling this government here. They did their best. They gave their dollars. And they did a good job of doing it. But you, as representative of the people of the city of Philadelphia, must stop. I got 17 grandkids in school. I got 5 great-grandkids. And they're doing good. Because I stay on their butt. But the fact is, when you come from a family like I come from, multicultural, half of me is Puerto Rican, the other half of me is Afro-American, and I know where everything came from in my life. You young kids, you got to hang in there and fight. Don't give up on these SOBs, because they was out to hurt you. Don't do no violence, just stand in there. Stand and stand and stand and stand and stand. Now, going back to my original title, I'm here as Carl Moore, but when you get the education point of it, my name is Dr. Mahmoud Hasiola Carl Moore. I got a PhD. These people up here in City Council right there, Jenny Blackwell, Maria, I remember when Maria was 17 years old. I remember when Jenny was teaching school. She teaches my niece. And my niece is a doctor now, MD. All what I'm saying to you is the fact is, and I spent 25 years down here. This has to stop. Mayor Nutter is talking about 9%. He ain't getting no 9%. I'm not going for it. And if you think you're going to run for that congressional seat, you can forget that too, brother. There ain't nothing going on. And I'm standing on the spot. I'm putting it out here, Maria. Councilperson Jenny Blackwell, number always with a person on the table. I don't hide nothing. This man lied to us. I listened to him tell y'all. He brought that same accountant on up here. The accountant ready to go, but they done stole so much money, it's a damn shame. And listen to this last gentleman here. Hey, they're doing it. I told you last time, have an audit. Oh, he's willing to go, but they got another replacement for him to go other place. The last superintendent, before she died, I guess she was saying her grace to God, she told me everything. She told me how they was giving money, how they was going to school, training these people to come in and take over. They want to shut down the school system, the public school system, and make it a charter. There was one charter school, a black charter school. He shut it down in the middle of the season. He couldn't let them go until June. Those parents had to go out there and try to find a way. Oh, it's the rules and regulations. And the rules and regulations, you people need rules and regulations. Find the thieves over there, but they're stealing. They're doing it honestly. The guy who's leaving in 2 weeks, he can tell you. He did it down there in Prince George County, Maryland. I gave this city council information on this man. I told you from the beginning, he was a thief, he was a crook. He's nothing but a flunky for somebody else, and he's not working for us. And it just proves it. Now he's trying to outsource. Isn't that something? I thought you outsourced overseas. Now he went outsource the nursing. He went outsource subbing teachers. Outsourcing subbing teachers? That means his boys got a plan for a contract. They get the contract, teacher come on there, hey, put them in there. They're doing this. This man went into an agreement with the school board. They have a contract. He wanted to shut them down, put them out. No one stand up and say anything. But guess what? If you think you're going to get my 9%, you're not going to get it. I'm a disabled vet, 72 years old, and I will go on the pension plan on you. It's over. We can't take it anymore, Maria. Our people can't take it. That Puerto Rican side of me can't take it more. Councilperson Blackwell, that black side of me can't take it no more. I can't take it. I've been in every civil rights movement there is. I'm on a new movement now. You're not gonna mess with my grandkids. And y'all in city council right there in your chambers in there, Kurt, Darryl, you come from the neighborhood. All of us. I'm saying I'm calling out by name. Stand up, Darryl, you're the president. Stand up, ask for accountability. What is he gonna do? He ain't gonna give you, don't let the man lie to you. Listen to Mother Janie. She'll lead you on the way. Ladies and gentlemen of this audience, and you young kids, hang in there. Don't y'all give up shit.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Mother and father whip your ass. You for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
All right, then. Always been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And God is so calm. Thank God you're still here. Don't retire yet. You got too much more work to do. You hear that, Maria? You can't retire. You got work for you to do, too.
You done?
Stick with us, Maria. You hear me, Kurt? You didn't put my nephews in school. I got you on that.
Thank you. We have another speaker here. Give us your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is Essence Whiting. Thank you for having me here today. Well, let's see. Good evening, not good evening. Okay. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Essence Whiting, and I'm a student at Kensington Urban Education High School and a student leader with Youth United for Change. We're here again today trying our best and utmost best to fight for our schools, our passion. The school district is trying to close my school and consolidate it with Kensington Business back to a large, overcrowded, dysfunctioning high school that failed years ago. We want you to know what is happening because the school district should not be allowed to get away with this. Our schools are part of Kensington Multiplex, a group of 5 small schools that students and community members fought for more than 10 years. This team of schools was designed to be a multiplex, working together to serve the students from Kensington catchment area. The Kensington Multiplex schools came out of community vision for a high-quality neighborhood education through small schools. They were a cohort of schools and should be treated as a team. As the multiplex coordinator, a principal core team, and the community stakeholders group and cross-school training supports, the school district needs to return to its vision. Rather than closing or merging or characterizing any of our schools, they should become pilot community schools, starting with Kensington Urban Education. The district and city have been exiting opportunity to invest in the Kensington Multiplex of a model of community-based neighborhood schools working together closely. If combining the schools supposedly saves money, why are we only worth that much money to you, school district? If we really shouldn't be worth any amount of money. We are all priceless. You can't pay for a young life. We should be worth the resources and money to become best we can absolutely be as a small school. If combining the schools supposedly improves our education, why is it the opposite of what's happening at Bartram High School? When the small schools were closed, it led to chaotic circumstances and didn't improve anything at all. We want much better education, but we know in our hearts that closing our schools is definitely not the way to do it. Instead, we should become a community school with community partnerships and strong parent community council. The school district has also pushed students, parent, and community out of this process. They informed us of the plan very late, and they're going to run a state law to speed up the school closing to June 18th. We're asking City Council to involve and not let the school district get away with this. This is about protecting our neighborhood schools, protecting our rights as parents and students and community members to have a say in our schools. That's it.
Andrew Lukov, Sarah Matone, Sule Sosa, Darren Spielman, Elizabeth Escobar, Chanel Houston,
Councilwoman Sanchez?
Yes, I just wanted to briefly, before our young people left here today, recognize one of the challenges that exist when we have new leadership that comes into the district. Having been a resident of North Philadelphia for 20-plus years, watching these school transformations, I think it's really important, and I'll ask my council colleagues to join me in asking the district to really respect what has been a 10-year plan of creating the Kensington multiplexes, and to really hear the voices of the young people. We've watched school after school get underfunded, and this is one of these decisions that it took us a long time to get to a place where these young people felt they were part of a school environment. And I think it's an opportunity for us to show that sometimes we have to put the pause button, because if not, we're destined to repeat history. And the Kensington complexes, along with Mastbaum and other schools, are vital to that community. So I'm going to be asking council to help me in advocating for a process that respects the number of years that went into the creation of this, and at the same time reaches the goal of how do we better serve young people. I don't think it's an either or, I think it's an and I look forward to working with not only Youth United for Change, but other student advocates. This is one of the last few organizations we have that really advocates strongly on behalf of young children and gives young people a voice, and we need to respect that. So I just wanted to put that on the record, and I look forward to working with the school district and the young people to get there.
Thank you, Councilwoman, and we thank you for always speaking for them whenever there's an education hearing and whenever it comes up, and when youth come, you always defend them and speak for them. Thank you very much. We have two more young ladies. Please give us your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is Elizabeth Escobar, and I am a student of Andrew Jackson Elementary School. I am here today to ask you to approve a budget that gives $105 million to the Philadelphia School District so that our students can have the quality education and so that all of our students can have access to the arts. I believe that the arts are essential in our public schools for many reasons. It gives us a way to express ourselves when words can't. It gives us a voice when there are many. When we are in despair, when we are hurt, the arts are there. Music and drawing and painting can help us reveal who we are. I thank you for listening, and I hope you will help our schools get the money they need so that our students can succeed in school and in their careers and in life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is Chanel Houston. I have worked as a teacher. I used to be a student, graduated 2014. Arts provider, I would like to think of myself as that. And taxpayer, I definitely am. Taking money out of my checks. Well, from listening to everybody, you know we need $105 million. There is no asking. It's a definite need for this $105 million. And I don't think there can be any better way of saying that coming from my arts family and coming from a high school that was dedicated to arts, it's amazing how it brings a community together. I think it's the most distressing thing when it comes to coming back from college and looking at the school system as it is. It's horrible that teachers have to take out huge chunks of their own money and they pay for supplies that can easily run over thousands of dollars. And it's even harder for families because a lot of the students end up having to ask their parents for money in order to buy these supplies. And being an art teacher part-time, it's engaging for me to work with both students and their parents in helping kids find their voice, helping them out of whatever problems they may have. I myself was very depressed as a young child, and if it wasn't for someone reaching out and helping me start an art program in my middle school when our art teacher was laid off, I would have taken a different path in life. I can honestly say that. So I will always be coming back here to be speaking again on behalf of actually my little brother, who is still in the Philadelphia public school system, because he's showing a great interest in art now, and it's getting harder to share my art supplies with him, but I know that I would give whatever money that I did earn in order to help provide him, and if I could, I would give all my money in order to help provide, but my measly checks cannot even begin to make a dent in this $105 million needed. So I hope that somehow money will rain from the sky, but these kids really need it. And coming from where they are in the past, my last 3 years of high school, it was horrible. Like, supplies were dwindling so fast. We were using reserve money, and then when there was none, we couldn't even put on a musical until we somehow managed to get that money. So these kids kind of need it. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else who would like to testify? Is there anyone else who would like to testify today? We want to certainly thank everyone who has testified today. It's been very important, and it's made a big difference for this subject. And as all of you know, anyone who would like to have something recorded on the record who didn't speak, we're happy to take your testimony and record it as though you made the statements here. I want to thank all my colleagues who've been here. Thank you, Councilwoman Sanchez, for staying until the end of our hearing. And we want to thank all of those who spoke for their varying testimonies. We only had one or two that were questioned by nearly everyone here, and we are grateful for that as well.
Madam Chairwoman, there are no other names on the speaker's comment list.
Thank you. So then we will not need our hearing that will begin at 1 o'clock. Therefore, this committee will stand in recess until Tuesday, June 2nd, 2015 at 10 a.m., at which time we will reconvene in these chambers, room 400, City Hall. Again, we thank you all very much.